Hey everyone, I'm Abby Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. Today's edition of What I Eat in a Day YouTube Reviews is sponsored by Squarespace, and I'm going to be taking a look at Adrienne Bailon from the YouTube channel All Things Adrienne. Now, if you're not familiar with Squarespace, it is an all-in-one platform to run your business, whether you're looking to build a website, blog, online store, or use their marketing tools and analytics. As a blogger myself, I love that Squarespace has a number of SEO tools to really take the guesswork out of making your site Google friendly. And it also has appointment scheduling tools for online booking or coordinating calendars. I also obviously do a lot of social media, so bloggers will really find the social sharing buttons helpful, while also setting up email campaigns for mailing lists. Honestly, when everything in your digital presence works together like this, it makes it so much easier for you to focus on your actual business. You can check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/AbbySharp to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, so now let's talk about Adrienne. So Adrienne is a singer, actress, and co-host of the daytime talk show The Real. And if you're a millennial like me, you may also recognize Adrienne from the Cheetah Girls, which is a bit of a blast from the past, to be honest. Most recently, however, Adrienne has competed in The Masked Singer. So she's really talented, obviously, and has a pretty impressive and successful career, and is now taking on the YouTube world with over 1 million subscribers. I have received a lot of requests from you guys to review Adrienne's recent What I Eat in a Day video. And since it's the only What I Eat in a Day video on Adrienne's channel, we'll also be taking a look at some of her other videos on her channel where she talks about becoming a vegan and her weight loss journey. Now, of course, before we jump into my review, I want to start with my general disclaimer that the information in this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and you should always seek out the help of a registered dietitian or medical professional for your unique healthcare needs. Also, I want to remind everybody to please be kind in the comments. No shaming Adrienne, no shaming me. Let's just try to be respectful here. Finally, a quick trigger warning. I am going to show her weighing herself, so if you are sensitive to numbers, you may just want to fast forward ahead for like a minute or so. Let's meet Adrienne.
So the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I brush my teeth, I use the restroom, and then I would get on the scale and weigh myself. Okay, this is profile 1, that's me. I am a female. I am 4'11". I am 36. 108.6 is my weight, and then it gives me everything else.
Okay, so in this clip, which I didn't show the whole clip, but Adrienne mentions that she weighs herself every morning using a body analyzer, aka the brand that actually sponsored this particular video. And this is basically like a fancy scale that measures certain anthropometrics like weight, water weight, muscle mass, bone density, and body fat. I can certainly understand why having this type of device in your home and receiving immediate health information about your body may seem really appealing and handy to some people, especially those who may have certain goals like fat or weight loss or weight gain. However, I want to just mention that the accuracy of body analyzers has been questioned by the medical community because there are several variables that are just not considered. So body analyzers don't consider where fat is stored in the body. So for instance, body fat that is stored around the organs in the abdominal area, aka visceral fat, has more associated health risks compared to the same amount of fat that is stored in, let's say, the lower body, like the thighs, in the bum, which is considered lower risk. And because women have a higher body fat percentage, a lot of that extra fat is stored in the thighs and the breasts. Now, while I can understand that simply stepping on a scale for this information might be easier than taking a trip to the doctor's office, more accurate and reliable body fat measurements would include things like waist circumference and skin fold measurements performed by a trained health professional. Again, just an FYI. Now, Adrienne also mentions that she weighs herself every single morning. And I can understand that if you have certain weight loss goals, you may be weighing yourself more frequently to kind of track that progress. However, I will also flag that weighing yourself every day can become an obsessive behavior and may have detrimental impacts on your mental health and self-esteem in some people. This is especially true for individuals who may have a history of body dysmorphia or eating disorders, and may therefore be a lot more susceptible to engaging in unhealthy weight loss behaviors due to that frequent and obsessive weighing. In fact, one literature review reviewing 20 different articles found a negative relationship between frequent weigh-ins and psychological outcomes. They found that self-esteem, body evaluation, and eating behaviors were all negatively impacted by engaging in regular self-weighing. It's also really important to consider that weight is constantly fluctuating as a result of things like menstruation, dehydration, caffeine and alcohol consumption, your last bowel movement, what you ate, etc. So if you weigh yourself every day or multiple times a day, you will likely see pretty aggressive fluctuations in your weight. Personally and professionally, I would not recommend weighing yourself every single day, especially if this is triggering behavior for you. I don't love the scale in general, but if you are someone like Adrienne who wants to keep track of their weight loss journey progress, weighing yourself about once a week or just checking in with how your clothes fit or how you feel would more than suffice. Let's see what Adrienne has for breakfast.
I don't know about you guys, but if you wake up too early in the morning, sometimes you're just not hungry. Listen to your body, pay attention to that. This will give me the energy that I need, but it's not heavy. It is kale, cucumber, celery, parsley. This has a lot of good stuff in it. You're not always gonna love green juice. You're not always gonna crave green juice. And I had to reassess my thoughts on food and my relationship with food, because food is not like pleasure. Yes, you can have pleasurable moments with food, but that shouldn't be the reason why you eat at all times. Like, it's actually for your health benefits and to keep you alive.
Okay, so Adrienne starts her morning with a nice big bottle of green juice, and that's about it. I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily call this breakfast. However, to be fair, she is starting her day off pretty early in the morning and mentions that she's typically not very hungry in the morning. So I am glad that she's kind of listening to her body's cues while still sneaking in a little bit of fuel before filming her talk show. However, I will flag that a lot of juices, maybe not necessarily this one because it's a lot of vegetables, I don't see a lot of fruit, but a lot of them are typically pretty high in sugar and low in fiber, which can leave you feeling hungry shortly after, especially if it's not paired with another food that can provide some of that fiber, protein, or fat to help slowly release those sugars into the bloodstream over time. Also, like I said, this juice doesn't really qualify as a whole breakfast meal to me because it's seriously lacking in sufficient calories. So I am hoping to see a more appropriate and balanced meal later on in the day when she has a little bit more of an appetite. Now, Adrienne also talks about eating for nourishment versus eating for pleasure. And while she does have a point in saying that we eat to provide our bodies with the fuel and nutrition that it needs to be strong and healthy, we also know that it's healthy and normal to eat for reasons beyond nutrients, calories, and numbers. I am not sure that I agree with Adrienne that seeing food solely as fuel is a healthy mindset, especially if it means chugging down food that you don't like just because you think that you should. Having said that, a lot of people will probably ask me at some point, well, is it intuitive eating if you eat or drink something preemptively, even if you're not hungry in the moment? Basically what Adrienne is doing right now. And to that I would say, yes, it absolutely can be. In Adrienne's case, having her green juice when she's not really hungry before she starts her show is an act of self-care because she may be anticipating some hunger or needing some fuel in the near future. Maybe she knows that she'll feel better with a little bit of fuel in the tank when she has to go to work, and that if she had nothing, she may get really hungry at a time when she does not have access to food, like when you're on live TV. So this actually is compatible with intuitive eating, but I would like to see her choose a food that is both nourishing and enjoyable because these categories are not mutually exclusive. So let's take a look at what she's having for lunch. And I hope that she enjoys it.
Now I am going to have my avocado that I didn't eat from this morning, and I'm gonna put that on a Quaker, and I'm actually also going to have this amazing vegetable soup. Getting more roughage in your body or drinking green juices is definitely gonna make you use the bathroom. That is a good thing. Cleanses your body and cleans your body out. You want your body to be as close to a newborn baby as possible. They say that babies' bodies are so clean and pure when they're first born. That is why every time they eat something, they go to the bathroom right after.
Okay, so lots to talk about here. It's now lunchtime, which for Adrienne and her crew happens around 9 in the morning due to their early call time. Totally makes sense. Adrienne has a whole avocado on 2 rice cakes, along with some vegetable soup. Now, I am glad that we are seeing some more substantial calories here with this meal compared to just like the green juice this morning or in the morning. However, for someone who is so concerned with weight loss, I am really missing the protein here. I mean, we're getting lots of great healthy fats from the avocado, not a whole lot of nutritional value from the rice cakes, to be honest, but I guess like some carbs, and we're getting some veggies in the soup. I don't really know what's in the soup exactly, but one thing to be aware of with a lot of takeout soups is that they often contain a lot of sodium, which can make you feel pretty bloated and even cause the number on the scale to rise. So just something to be aware of if you see an unexpected spike because you're weighing yourself every single day, it's probably the salt. Now, Adrienne also makes some interesting comments about regularity by claiming that drinking green juice provides roughage, which helps you to go to the bathroom. Not exactly. So roughage is a term used to describe fiber, which, as we know, helps to keep our bowels moving and is really important for digestive health. But the important thing to note about juicing is that it completely strips the fiber from the fruit and the vegetables. So what you're really getting from juices is mostly water content and lots of vitamins, of course, but oftentimes a lot of sugar, especially if your juice has a lot of fruit in it. So most green juices do not actually have much roughage in them at all. So feeling the need to go to the bathroom after drinking a lot of green juice is most likely attributed to simply drinking more liquids from the water content contained in that juice, which helps kind of move things along in the bowels. Another reason for this effect is that a lot of fruits and veggies contain natural sugar alcohols like sorbitol, which can sometimes have a laxative effect in the body by pulling water into the large intestine. But ideally, we don't want loose stools. So what would probably do a much better job at improving your bowel movements would be to have a salad with lots of fresh fiber-rich greens and veggies in their whole state, plus some water on the side. Now, I also want to note about Adrienne's suggestion that we should be going to the bathroom as often as newborn babies in order to cleanse ourselves, lose weight, and achieve the same purity as babies. No. First of all, babies go to the bathroom more often, not because they're pure, but because their digestive organs like the stomach, esophagus, and intestines are substantially smaller than that of an adult. A 1-week-old newborn stomach is about the size of an apricot or plum, so it can actually only hold about 3 to 4 tablespoons of liquid. Obviously then, they have to feed like every hour or so, and they poop pretty regularly. Newborn babies' guts are also immature as they are actively building digestive enzymes and healthy gut bacteria. Hence why we don't give newborns green juice or avocado, we give them breast milk or formula only. So it does not make sense to compare the inputs and outputs of adult humans to babies when these systems are developmentally very, very different. I also want to touch on Adrienne's recommendation that we should be going to the bathroom an hour after eating a meal. While drinking something like green juice may or may not give you the runs, the time it takes for one meal to move through your stomach and intestines can take anywhere from 1 to 3 days or more. And this is necessary and important in order for nutrients from food to be efficiently digested and absorbed by the body before excretion. If you were to go to the bathroom immediately after a meal, you may be bypassing critical steps in digestion and absorption and missing out on important nutrients from food. And a super speedy transit through the digestive system is often the case with things like diarrhea, which is perhaps the only time when you'll find yourself running to the can in the hours following a meal where what is coming out is that meal. And I think we can all agree that this is no fun for anybody. So a quick transit time through the digestive system is not necessarily ideal and would totally defeat the purpose of eating that food or drinking that really expensive green juice in the first place, because you wouldn't actually be absorbing most of the valuable nutrition that it provides. And from what I gather from Adrienne, getting her nutrients from green juice is definitely a priority. Also, contrary to what Adrienne might be suggesting here, regularity is different for everyone and is highly variable. Research shows that normal bowel movement frequency can be anywhere between 3 times per day to 3 times per week, depending on diet, hydration status, exercise, pre-existing gastrointestinal illness, the integrity of the gut microbiome, medication, gender, age, stress, etc. It is very unlikely that you're going to completely change your daily bathroom routine just by drinking some green juice. Let's take a look at her snack.
I went to briefing and I came back hungry. And it's in moments like this that I have a few ideas of how you can curb a craving. I have a sweet craving right now, is what I'm craving. I'm gonna try to just chug an entire bottle of water because that makes me feel full and then I don't have my craving anymore. Don't give in to the craving. Listen to me, watch this, focus, self-discipline. I tell myself self-love is self-discipline. And I'm going to chug this entire thing.
Whoa. Okay, well, where to start? So for snack time, Adrienne is hungry, not surprisingly, as she hasn't eaten much today. But instead of giving into her cravings, she has a big jug of water. I can see why you guys flagged this video for me to review. Now, Adrienne claims that this is kind of her diet hack to help her feel full and encourages her fans to listen to her and to not give in to their cravings and instead to just chug some calorie-free water. Her rationale is that the best act of self-love is self-discipline. That is so wrong. The only appropriate self-loving response to your body's legitimate need for food is food, and specifically food that is safe, culturally appropriate, and enjoyable. This is a human right. Self-discipline at the expense of meeting your body's needs is the opposite of self-love. Like, I'm kind of mad that she even had to say that. Now, it's important that you know that if you are hungry for a snack, water is just not going to fill that void. In fact, this is a super old school diet myth that just has not held up in real life. If you've been told by diet culture again and again that if you think you're hungry, you're probably actually thirsty, know that there is actually no strong evidence to suggest that thirst and hunger are actually confused. These are completely different sensations and communication mechanisms in the body. And seriously, folks, when in your life were you craving a piece of bread because you were hungry and felt totally content just drinking water instead? Never, at least not for very long. So while water may make you feel temporarily full from the sheer volume, it only perpetuates feelings of guilt and shame when you do eventually give in to your craving for actual food, which of course may then trigger a binge. Ugh. Let's hope we have some real food for dinner.
I am about to have some soup du jour, roasted vegetable soup. I'm going to stay away from this over here. Goodbye. Just take it away. I don't even want it. I haven't ordered it yet, but they also have some incredible, really great salads in there. Definitely gonna get in on that as well.
Okay, so it's dinner time, and while Adrienne's friends are enjoying some pizza for dinner, she opts for another vegetable soup and a salad instead. Now, I can't actually really comment on the salad as we don't know what it contains or if she even necessarily ends up ordering it, as she just kind of mentions it. But restaurant salads can kind of either go one way or the other, right? They can either be really nutrient dense and satiating and delicious and nourishing, or they can be really sad and boring. But regardless of what Adrienne's salad looked like, overall, this meal is still incredibly low in calories and protein and fat, especially since she also gave up, that bread that came with her soup. And given the context of her day, I was really hoping to see a more substantial meal that was far more balanced from what we've seen in the rest of her day. But sadly, that wasn't the case. Now, to get a better idea of Adrienne's overall diet, I looked at another video where she shares what she generally eats on her vegan diet for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and for a snack. It wasn't a full vlog style what I eat in a day like this one, but at least she does give us some insight into her weight loss eating routine. So let's take a look.
Breakfast, 50 shades of green, oatmeals. I like to add blueberries to my oatmeal. It's a good antioxidant. Avocado toast, either on Ezekiel bread or rice cakes. Protein shakes. You guys can make protein shakes for yourself in the morning. One of my favorite things ever is to use True Protein.
Okay, so we have a little bit more to work with here when it comes to her breakfast options. So oatmeal is of course a favorite of mine, as it's an excellent source of fiber and complex carbohydrates to really start the morning. But of course I would love to see some protein in there to help balance it out. So maybe some protein powder or soy milk or powdered peanut butter or hemp seeds on top, nut butter, etc. But definitely a much better option than just the green juice that we saw her drink all by itself. I would also much rather her go for the Ezekiel bread over the rice cakes for the avocado toast option, as it is far more nutrient dense. And actually, Ezekiel bread has about 3 grams of fiber and 4 grams of protein compared to rice cakes, which have less than a gram of protein and fiber each. And then finally, the protein shake, depending on what is in it, would definitely be a lot more satisfying and balanced than just the green juice from day one. But let's see what she has to say about lunch.
I would eat either like huge salads, again with avocado. My favorite greens is arugula, peppers, and literally just make myself like this huge, hearty salad.
Okay, so there's definitely nothing wrong with a nice big salad for lunch. A hearty salad is admittedly one of my go-to lunch meals. However, it does sound like her salads are mostly just made up of large volumes of vegetables. And of course, salads are an excellent way to get in a ton of fiber and vitamins, but a girl can't live off greens alone. For a vegan salad to be satiating enough for a meal, we would definitely want to see some plant-based protein in there from some beans, tofu, tempeh or edamame, some healthy fats from some olive oil or nuts or avocado like she mentioned, which is great. But I would even throw in some complex carbohydrates from foods like sweet potato, quinoa, or some fruit in there. When I think hearty salad, I don't just think vegetables. And maybe Adrienne's salads are beautifully balanced and satiating. We don't really know just from her description. But from what I've seen so far in her vlog video, I'm not really that optimistic. Now, in another one of her videos where she's discussing eating more plant-based, she talks about how she eats out in restaurants and that she always orders either a salad or some steamed vegetables from the side order menu. Now, I love ordering some extra veggies to kind of boost up the produce in my meal, but vegetables alone are not a meal in my books. And while I can totally understand that transitioning to a vegan diet has its challenges, especially when going out for dinner with friends, there are definitely so many vegan options and alternatives now available in restaurants that eating vegan shouldn't mean exclusively only eating vegetables. Let's see what she has to say about snack.
I love nuts. I still love popcorn. Herbal green popcorn. Organic vegan popcorn. Made with spirulina, created with love. And my other favorite snack, the Asha Pops are amazing. 100 calories for this entire bag. and it only has 17 carbs. Dietary fiber is amazing. Guys.
Okay, am I the only one who thinks that spirulina popcorn kind of looks like weed? But anyways, these are all great snack options here. Definitely miles better than the water chugging to mask hunger that we witnessed earlier. But nuts are, in my opinion, a perfect snack because they provide healthy fats, protein, and fiber in one go. Popcorn is also one of my favorite whole grains, but ideally, we might want to see it turn into like a trail mix with some seeds or some nuts in there to help boost up the satiety factor. And I've never actually heard of those Ashipop things, but they do have 4 grams of protein, a gram of fiber, and 17 grams of carbs per bag. Not bad, but you probably would definitely have to eat the whole bag to actually get any adequate nutrition out of them. But anyways, if she loves them, looks good to me. Let's see dinner.
Vegan chili. I love lentil soup. Roasted mushrooms, sauteed kale, broccoli. I felt so good about myself because I was like, I am filling myself with such good nutritional food.
So again, these are all excellent vegan dinner options. And I also am admittedly obsessed with lentil soup. Super easy to prepare and nutrient dense and so budget friendly. But the beans in the chili and the lentils in the lentil soup would provide a good amount of protein, fiber, and carbs. So even though we've probably picked up on the fact that Adrienne does tend to like soups or liquid meals, I would much rather see her have something more hearty and satiating like vegan chili or lentil soup versus straight up broth or just vegetable soup by itself. So I am glad and somewhat relieved that Adrienne enjoys these types of vegan meals for her dinners. And I kind of just wish that we saw this in her vlog style video too. So now let's get to some of my general questions. Is this way of eating balanced? Well, because we are limited to only one actual What I Eat in a Day video on Adrienne's channel, plus some kind of general suggestions on what she sometimes does, it's hard to even know if this is an accurate representation of how Adrienne regularly eats. But just going off of what we've seen, Adrienne's diet left a lot to be desired. According to our analysis, Adrienne is consuming under 900 calories on this day, meaning only 43% of her daily caloric needs, 41% of her daily carbohydrate needs, 58% of her fat needs, and about 33% of her daily protein needs. So she's basically missing out on half of her body's needs for an entire day. I know that she's trying to actively lose weight, but this is a significant caloric deficit. Not to mention that in one video she discusses her exercise regime while rehearsing for The Masked Singer, and it sounded pretty intense. She talks about doing 45 minutes on the elliptical twice a day, plus her dance rehearsal, then would perform 4 times per week and lift weights 3 times per week. Whoa, that is a lot, especially on such little fuel. I would be very worried about the real risk of injury, extreme fatigue, and loss of muscle mass and strength, which ultimately would not support her in her weight loss maintenance long term. Now, are there any problematic claims or assumptions made by this channel? Well, I want to start by discussing some of the ways that she talks about her own weight loss journey, because there are definitely some really important things that I want to unpack. Let's take a look.
I want to be healthy and I don't want to go on like a diet. I want this to be a lifestyle. I gave myself all of these goals and deadlines that I had to make. My goal was getting to 105 pounds and I was willing to do that in 3 months.
Okay, so first, I have to say that I think it's really unusual that she claims that she didn't want to diet and wanted it to be a lifestyle, which, let's be real, is the enticing ruse of wellness culture. But if tricking your body into suppressing hunger and sugar cravings isn't a diet, I don't know what is. Also, I can understand why setting specific time-based weight loss goals might seem really helpful, especially since diet culture has led us to believe that you can lose X amount of weight in X amount of time. However, research has shown that it's much more effective and beneficial in the long term for your long-term health to take the focus off weight loss as the end goal and focus on day-to-day habits and behaviors instead. In other words, shifting your focus from outcome goals to process goals. By focusing on healthy behaviors instead of achieving a specific weight loss goal or number, it may help us kind of adjust our thinking and help us understand that our health is based on so much more than just our weight. This means that we can start to tune into movement and ways of eating that make us actually feel good and continue to use those behaviors even if they don't result in extreme weight loss. When eating more vegetables is strictly tied to losing weight, we're kind of less likely to keep it up when we do lose the 10 pounds. But that is not how you build a healthy lifestyle. That is how you encourage crash dieting that is just not sustainable in the long term. And it can also encourage drastic unhealthy behaviors to meet the short-sighted goal. Let's see what else she has to say.
I cut out major things from my diet, regular bread, pasta. I do not eat anything that is white refined carbs. What do you want? What do you want for your life? And if you don't want to give up something, then you don't want it badly enough. Like, there's no shortcuts. There's no easy way to do it. You have to make a decision within yourself to say, I am going to make a change so that I can get the results that I want that make me feel good about me.
Okay, so Adrienne here is talking about making sacrifices, like giving up foods that you truly love in order to achieve your weight loss goal. I don't know. I think this whole insistence on extreme sacrifice is a problematic concept in and of itself. I strongly believe that weight loss does not have to mean cutting out foods that you genuinely enjoy. And she clearly loves bread. She talks about loving bread. In fact, by classifying a food that you love as forbidden or bad, research suggests that we just kind of tend to obsess over it and want it more, often resulting in a binge. This is not the sustainable lifestyle that Adrienne talked about wanting for herself. It is also perfectly possible to include foods that you actually love in your diet while still having a weight loss goal and enjoying them in moderation. Honestly, the idea that not giving something up means you don't want it badly enough is so heavily ingrained in diet culture and is riddled with victim blaming and guilt. And nobody needs that. Let's see what else.
And I would drink a gallon of water a day. For me, it was amazing. I felt a difference in my skin. Moments that I had like crazy cravings, I would drink hot water with lemon and like that would take the craving away. Or I would just sit and like chug water. Even though I had just eaten, you know when you finish like a healthy meal and you're like, but I'm still hungry. I've been there. Drink water, drink hot water with lemon. That is the key.
So I'm happy to hear that Adrienne says she felt great drinking a gallon of water. I mean, if that's what your body needs, especially if you're running around performing, then by all means, drink up. I mean, listen to your body and pay attention to those early signs of thirst like dry mouth or concentrated urine. But she does talk about using the hot or cold water to kind of kill her cravings or help her feel full, which, as we've already discussed, is one of the most long-standing pervasive diet culture tricks I know. Now, I want to make it clear that drinking water is important, but there's also such a thing as drinking too much water in that if it gets excessive, it can cause your sodium levels to drop too low, causing something called hyponatremia, which can be dangerous and even fatal. I'm not saying that a gallon of water will necessarily cause hyponatremia. I mean, Adrienne would know if it did. But I do want to caution that just because water is good for you, it doesn't mean that it can't become not so good if consumed beyond your body's actual needs. So the general recommendation is to drink enough water to quench your thirst while monitoring the color of your urine to assess for overall hydration. So ideally we want your urine to range from a light yellow like lemonade kind of color to a light amber color like a light beer. You also don't want your urine to be completely clear, which would be a sign that you might be drinking too much water and you might need to pull it back. Importantly, if you're still hungry after a meal, like she suggests, my recommendation is to listen to your body and choose fuel from food, not try to suppress your hunger temporarily by stretching out your stomach with water. That is just a disrespect to your body. Let's see what else she has to say.
I did not eat out. From social events to your friends. One of the greatest tips I ever heard in my life was from my trainer who got me ready for my wedding. She would see some of my friends that would be around me that literally would almost mock my discipline. And they would be like, oh my gosh, just eat the bread, Adrienne, just eat the bread. She saw that happen and she was like, that's not your friend. Anyone that is a distraction or someone that's getting in the way of you reaching your ultimate goal or doesn't support you or encourage you, you might want to cut those people off.
Okay, so what Adrienne is describing here is one of the many reasons why dieting is so hard for so many people. For one, food and eating is a social phenomenon, right? We often eat our meals around the dinner table with our families or at social gatherings at restaurants with friends or coworkers. We celebrate with food and we mourn with food. However, what often happens with dieting is that it can inhibit these social activities, either because maybe the restaurant doesn't meet our specific dietary restrictions, or in Adrienne's case, because of the perceived lack of support or food shaming you get from friends. I can really empathize with Adrienne, as it is not nice for your friends to mock you and not support your goals. However, I think one question that I would want to ask myself before I would go to the extreme of cutting someone out is my diet or weight loss really worth losing a friend? So perhaps before making any concrete decisions around phasing out friend groups, it might be helpful to have an open conversation with your friends or family. And she mentions doing this. So let them know that this goal is important to you and explain how they can better support you so that you can feel comfortable in social gatherings that involve food. Also, I would make sure it's clear that you are not judging their eating or pushing your diet agenda on them, as that is often a reason for kind of the mocking or the pushback. If this is something that you're struggling with, I go into a lot more detail on diet shaming in my video right here and in my Mind Your Own Plate blog post that I'm going to be leaving in the description below. So let's see what else she has to say.
Self-discipline is sexy. Before eating like the whole bread basket, I'd be like, damn, self-discipline is sexy, because when you recognize how strong your willpower is and how strong your mind is, you recognize that that ends up being a common thread throughout every area of your life.
Again with the self-discipline, which is basically another word for willpower. And while I do think that discipline is an admirable trait for a variety of goals like work and school, Adrienne's definition of self-discipline requires an enormous amount of restriction, which is very likely to kind of set you up for failure. Like I said earlier, exercising self-discipline by telling yourself that you can't have something that your body actually is screaming for, like food, not more water, just makes you want it that much more. And as our desire for forbidden foods like bread builds, you might actually eventually cave and eat the whole bread basket when maybe a single piece could have easily satisfied your body's desires and needs. So it's very clear to me that Adrienne has a fairly extreme all or nothing approach to her diet, which obviously is working kind of well for her now, but statistically likely won't in the long run. Again, I 100% believe that long-term weight loss is possible and can be sustainable. But any lifestyle that requires you to completely eliminate foods that you love, undereat by blunting hunger cues with water, and even cut out friends who don't share your restrictive diet is not what I call a sustainable lifestyle. The weight loss may not be as drastic if you allow yourself a piece of bread at dinner, but slow and steady wins the race here. Or at the very least, it doesn't make you go mad. I also want to touch on Adrienne's rationale for choosing a vegan diet. Now, apparently, Adrienne was inspired by the medical medium and decided to transition to a vegan diet as a way to treat her Hashimoto's disease. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Hashimoto's disease, it's an autoimmune disorder that affects the thyroid gland, causing hypothyroidism, which results in a decrease in the thyroid function and hormone production. However, there is actually very little research to support consuming a vegan diet for Hashimoto's disease or hypothyroidism. We did find one 2013 study which suggested that a vegan diet may decrease the risk of hypothyroidism. However, the results of this study were not even statistically significant. One major concern that I want to point out for individuals with Hashimoto's disease or hypothyroidism who may be following a vegan diet is the importance of iodine. Iodine is an essential nutrient necessary for thyroid hormone production, and individuals following a strictly vegan diet may be at higher risk of iodine deficiency due to lower intakes of dairy and seafood. Now, some vegan-friendly sources of iodine that you definitely would want to consider including in your diet include seaweed, iodized salt, whole grain bread, prunes, and lima beans. Again, I'm not saying that veganism causes iodine deficiency. I'm just saying that statistically, there is a slightly higher risk. I also want to mention that there are some foods that may be beneficial for some individuals with thyroid dysfunction to limit. So there are some compounds called GOITROGENS, which may have a negative effect on the thyroid by interfering with some of the uptake of iodine. So some examples of goitrogens in common foods include cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage, as well as soy-based foods like tofu, tempeh, edamame, and soy milk. This is especially important to consider in the context of a vegan diet, as it may rely heavily on some of these types of foods. You likely don't have to eliminate these foods, but it is something to be mindful that may be problematic when consumed raw in the case of the cruciferous vegetables or in excess. Now, the goitrogens and soy may not be a huge issue for Adrienne, but one thing I am concerned about is her caloric intake. Low caloric intakes have been associated with decreased thyroid hormones like T3 and T4, with research on chronic starvation and restriction suggesting a very close relationship between low food intake and abnormal thyroid function. So this is important to consider if you're following a particularly restrictive diet and are susceptible to thyroid dysfunction. We're going to be talking a lot more about Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism and nutrition in a video that I'm working on right now. So definitely make sure that you are subscribed so that you do not miss out. Now, all that said, you know that I think there are lots of reasons to eat a vegan diet. And I do not think that hypothyroidism is a reason to necessarily avoid it. So as long as eating plant-based makes Adrienne feel better, amazing. This is what I want to hear. Now, overall, I am getting the impression that Adrienne has sadly fallen into the deep end of a lot of diet culture traps. For instance, we see that she tends to fill up on a lot of fluid rather than eating solid food. And any solid meal that she does have tends to be very low in calories and void of really important macronutrients like protein and carbohydrates. We also see a preoccupation with detoxing, weight loss, avoiding sugar cravings, drinking lots of water, and practicing self-discipline to restrict calories. Now, while having a weight loss goal is a personal choice that I totally support, I am concerned with the excessive level of restriction that Adrienne is putting her body through to achieve this goal. Even though we only witnessed one full day of eating, if Adrienne is regularly eating only 50% of her daily energy needs while exercising at a pretty elite level, I do have concerns about the long-term impact of this severe restriction metabolically, reproductively, and psychologically. Listen, I have a lot of empathy for anyone working in Hollywood who is not naturally a size 2. It is an unfair reality that a lot of really talented people will have to fight extra hard at the expense of their long-term health just to fit in with the Hollywood crowd. Judging by Adrienne's struggles with her own naturally slim friends, I can only assume how difficult that must be. The bottom line is that some people, even in Hollywood, are just not meant to be waif thin. Our bodies have a certain shape or size that they prefer to be. And I think Adrienne is so incredibly talented that if people do not see this despite her size, then they are the losers in this. The best diet is the one that is sustainable in the long term. And while Adrienne states that she just wants this to be a lifestyle, I wonder how realistic that is when words like sacrifice and self-discipline are consistently part of her mantra. Ultimately, folks, my goal with these What I Eat in a Day videos is to point out some problematic content online to help you make informed decisions and help you build a positive relationship with food. It is not to tear people down or criticize them. So again, please do not attack Adrienne in this. Now, while some HAES fans would probably disagree with me, I do believe that it is possible to have a weight loss goal, whether that's for health or aesthetic purposes, while still eating in a balanced and sustainable way. But this was just not it. My hope is that Adrienne will find a happy, healthy medium as she continues on her weight loss journey and finds a way to truly convert this into a lifestyle that feels good. Well, folks, that is all for today's video. A big thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you liked it, be sure to give it the thumbs up. Leave me a comment below with who you'd like to see me review next. Until then, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!